at this age, you need to prioritize your hormones first. You want to make sure the hormones stay balanced and stay happy.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the First Optimal podcast again. Really excited. We have Tatch with us, and she is a really special fitness coach. I'm really excited to get into her story, her experience. She's got a lot of great tips, a lot of practical advice. And that's why we wanted to reach out to her and get her on the show. Has an amazing following of not only other, fitness related type trainers or influencers, but also just a lot of women kind of going through some midlife transitions, following her for tips and suggestions. And so we thought we would bring her to you and shine a light on all of her wonderful knowledge that she's sharing with the world. So thanks for joining us this morning. I know we're in different time zones, so it's always a fun to talk through that different parts of the world.
Thanks for having me, Joe. So I'm very excited to connect with you. And so let me tell you a little bit more about how I started this this coaching program that I'm offering now.
For sure.
So this is weird because today, as we're recording this, tomorrow is my birthday and I'm going to be 53.
Yeah.
Well,
happy birthday.
Thank you. So anyway, a little bit background of who I am. So I've been a certified personal trainer for more than 10 years. And I got into that space when I had my second child and I wanted to lose weight. So I hired a personal trainer. Back then I was just a normal, regular girl. I hired a personal trainer for 6 months, man, and he changed my life. And for me, it wasn't about the workouts. Right. I think we were doing kettlebell and I'm not into kettlebell, but what he gave me was the empowerment, was the discipline, the commitment, and to see the transformation. And I was hooked when he transformed me. And that's when I went to get certified. And, but I've always worked in corporate all my life. So I would do personal training sessions on the side on weekends, with some clients here and there. And everything was going very well until I hit perimenopause. So towards the end of my 40s, when my routine completely stopped working. I was super frustrated. I didn't know what was going on. And to be honest, Joe, back then, so that was a while ago, no one really talked a lot about perimenopause. It was almost about menopause. Right. And back then I was like, I'm not in menopause. I was still having my period and everything was fine. So I'm like, I'm definitely not in menopause. And what was wrong with me? That's what I had in my head, and I tried to work out harder. I tried to eat less because it used to work when I was in my 20s, right? But nothing that I was doing was working. And it took me I did so much research. I did so many trials and errors before I finally figured out how to manage this new body at this stage of life, because I finally realized that it wasn't me. It was the hormones, and it was my biology. It's a new body. So I needed a new approach. And that's where the reverse me method came in. And so that's my little background.
Yeah, no, it's always great to have someone on who has their own, personal journey as well as the success, of their clients and helping people. And I think even a lot of your information really resonates with a lot of people. We'll have this in the show notes for everybody, and we'll talk about it, at the end of the episode. But Tatch Fit at 50, I think, is like an awesome handle because it's pretty straightforward as far as your name and where you are in life, and with the big 5-3 coming up tomorrow. So, but yeah, I am always curious to, dive into that journey and kind of some things that you noticed. Was it because you mentioned getting kind of started about 10 years ago, I believe. So when would you say your own journey, you started to feel some transitions? Like what was kind of the age range there that you started to really feel things kind of shift and some more difficulty?
I think when I was around 48,
Mhm.
and I noticed my energy was super low. Like I couldn't finish any workout because I was just tired all the time. But I was still doing it. You know, I was
Yeah.
plowing through just like I've always done. But my energy was super low, and it was the same. I was doing the exact same thing, and it was nothing was working. My workouts didn't work. I even tried, believe it or not, I even tried other people's workout because I at
Yeah.
one point I was like, maybe it's my own workout, and like I even went on YouTube, just like
Sure.
everyone else, and but nothing seriously was working, and it was super frustrated for me because as a personal trainer, to gain weight and not being able to lose it, it's catastrophe.
Well, and I think too, like, because you mentioned like, late 40s. I mean, the thing for a lot of people out there listening is to, remember that we're all unique and different. So there's certain overlapping, practices that work well that we know from a science standpoint, nutrition practices, health practices, exercise practices that work. When it comes to hormones and shifting in the body, I'm seeing it from women in their early 30s to women not really experiencing it till some in their mid 50s. I had somebody on the podcast about 2-3 months ago who said she hasn't really experienced anything and her blood work hasn't changed, and she's in her 50s, well into her 50s. So I think it's important for people to keep that in mind. And my wife kind of started playing with this saying because she was at a women's health seminar recently that she was giving a talk at, and she was talking about basically like one of the taglines was like, perimenopause is not a cuss word, right? She's like, it's okay to say that because a lot of especially like women that I know, even in their, that are in their 30s, sometimes in their 40s, or maybe a little more accepting, but they're still resistant. But definitely in their 30s, like, do not say that. You're crazy. I'm not going through these changes. It's like, whenever you feel that change and whenever you feel that transition. So, I'm curious, like, what is the mindset when women are coming to you for help? What do they sound like? What do you hear when they're coming to you? Is it similar to what you experience, or just kind of, can you walk us through what that kind of that feel is when they're first interacting with you?
I think big time that everyone literally, so most of them are literally exhausted. They're
Yeah.
so tired, and they're really trying. It's not that they're not trying. They're trying, but it's nothing is working. So they're frustrated, and they try so many different things. And I think there's so much information now out there about perimenopause, and they don't know what to listen or what to believe, which podcast, which website, or which YouTube. And there's just so much out there that they're probably overloaded with information. So, but I think when they reach out, I think they resonated with me because I also experienced firsthand,
Yeah.
how frustrating I was, because I was in the exact same shoes as they were a few years ago. So I know exactly how they feel. And I think a lot of them, it's not, and it's not just about the weight loss, the belly fat. It's also like they feel like this is not their body. Like they don't recognize this new body. Like they don't know what's going on. That's the thing. Yeah, they don't know what's going on.
Yeah. No, that's sounds that makes a lot of sense, I guess, is the way I would put that. Because men kind of progressively decline over time, or women more, they'll go through these little cliffs of drops, and it's kind of seems a little more dramatic for them. And I think, and again, this is just off of anecdotal information off of women I've interacted with over the years in the women's health space. And I think a lot of it is they just feel like, oh, well, my cycle is just off this month, the next month, the third month, the 4 month, and they're kind of like, well, something's off with that. And they're like brushing it off a little bit. And I think that's part of why that cliff gets them to that breaking point, and then they interact with, someone like yourself. So I think it's helpful too. Like when women come to you, what are some common maybe myths that they're bringing to you, like things that they're saying that you're like, this is not good, or that's not how it works, or that you have to clear up? What are some things that pop up in those initial interactions?
I think one of the one of the things I've noticed is that these women, they take care of themselves,
Hmm.
right? They work out. Not that they're not working out, but they're not doing the right kind of workouts for this new body.
Mm.
So that's one thing that I see a lot. And not that what they're doing is not good, but if the hormone is out of whack and the whatever activities they're doing doesn't support these hormonal shifts, it's going to be a big struggle, you know. And a lot of people also come in and they think that they're eating clean, they're eating healthy, but you know, a lot of them, once they become clients, and then I can see that it's not how they should eat for this new body, you know. So there is and there is a way to rebalance your hormones and to get yourself back and to get fit again, to build strength again, by really by really changing how they move and how they eat. I truly believe that. So,
Yeah,
you know, if you can get the basics right, you
yeah.
know, that's a solid foundation already.
So what is like one thing that comes to mind? And I know there's a lot, right? A lot of individualized approach with what you do, but what's one thing that comes to mind from maybe a change you often see that you have to make in a woman's, you know, approach to exercise? Let's start there.
I think a lot of women who come to me, they continue to do what they've been doing. Just, and you know what, Joe, and it's exactly because I see me in them, because that's exactly what I was doing when I was going through the struggle, right? It was off. I felt it was off because it wasn't working. But what did I do? I continued to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So they need to change the strategy, the way they work, the way they move. Because otherwise, if they keep doing the same thing, if you're doing the things that it's not working, you need to change.
Yeah.
Right?
And do you see differences in like frequency? Like, are they working out too much or doing resistance training too much or cardio too much? Is there any nuances you see there, or, you know, things that pop up?
Yeah, you know, from someone who's coming from a fitness space as a personal trainer. I now notice, well, I think at this age, now I know that recovery is just as important as the workout hours. And you know, at this age, you need to prioritize your hormones first. You want to make sure the hormones stay balanced and stay happy. To be like, if we're using simple terms, we want the hormones to stay happy, because if she's not happy, you can do whatever you want. Nothing will change, right? We need to make sure, because she's changing and it's so fast.
Yeah.
And when we don't address that, we don't change our lifestyle to match her, nothing's going to work.
Yeah, I noticed like you know, you have some content, for example, healthy habits at 52. I wish I knew in my 30s. Like, I'm wondering, just for those who maybe haven't seen your content, can you walk through just some of the bullet points you see that, you know now that maybe in the past you didn't know? Like, you're talking a little bit about lifting heavy. Like, can you maybe unpack that? Like, what do you see how do you define lifting heavy? What is it that are women not lifting heavy when they come to you? And yeah, I think just so that if I'm listening to this, right, and I want to apply something, like, what does that mean in your world? Like, what does that mean, lifting heavy, and how do you apply that?
I think a lot of women in my generation, we were more cardio focused.
Yeah.
You know, because we want to be thin, right? And cardio was the queen of exercise, or at least in my generation. And I think a lot of women who are my age or roughly my age can resonate with that, because all we did was cardio. Could be running, treadmill, whatever. But because our muscles, it starts to decline after your 30s. So if you do too much cardio, you're losing muscles. You're making your muscle loss even faster, right? So, and I know this because I was exactly where they were. I was also kind of lifting when I was struggling, but I wasn't lifting heavy enough. And that's the thing, you know, you gotta lift really heavy. And when I said heavy, it's like if you can do 30 reps with this dumbbell, that's way too light, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So yeah, so I think that uh, midlife women really need to change the strategy, especially with the workouts, because if we do not at least maintain or try to build muscles, the metabolism is going to slow down even
Right.
more. And we need the muscles to help us burn fat, So seriously, if there's one thing that you should start doing tomorrow is lift heavy.
Yeah, and I noticed this. I noticed a lot, or a lot of success with, kind of an 8 to 12 rep range. You're pretty fatigued. You're towards those last, 2 to 3 reps, and something along the lines of a progressive overload, where they're, even if it's loosely monitoring, like they're not getting ready for a powerlifting meet or, some kind of lifting expo. So I think, but a reasonable tracking to where, is my weight going up, or is my rep range, if I'm hitting 8, I'm doing 100 pounds on XYZ machine and I'm doing 8, I can get to 8 and then I have to, gas out. Can I get to 10 in 2 to 3 weeks, right? Like some kind of progressive overload by either changing, the easiest is changing like the weight or the amount of reps.
Right.
And I think that's a big indicator. There's also other things that you can get into nuance with programs as far as time under tension and things of that nature. But I think generally speaking, just someone who's maybe newer to exercise is doing that. What are some of the benefits that come to mind? The difference between like lifting heavy versus like doing more aerobic work. Not that there's anything wrong with aerobic work, but like what would be like the additional benefits to having more of a heavier resistance training in a woman's program that's, perimenopause, menopause, etc.
I think, well, besides that, it's the preferred exercise to help build muscles when you compare with cardio. And like you said, Joe, it's not that cardio is bad, but we need to prioritize lifting heavy.
Yeah.
Because yes, we want to build muscles. We want to, because when we start getting our muscles back, it helps us burn fat. It helps accelerate the metabolism. And seriously, I feel powerful, man, when I can lift.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's no, and I think for me, when you think about the traditional cardio concept, it's always like an hour long, right?
Right.
We lift heavy, but we're not going to do it for an hour, right? So energy is also important. Energy is crucial for our age. We need to nourish that. We need to preserve that as well. So it's a win-win.
Someone new coming to you, and I know we're painting with a broad brush here, so there's a lot of individual approaches, but people are busy, right? They got a lot going on and they're already don't have a lot of energy. And now you're like, no, I got to go work out. And you want me to do things that are really hard in the gym? Like, What does that look like as far as on average, how much time per day should they be, or how much time in a session should they be carving out for heavy resistance training, do you find? And then roughly how many days a week are generally recommended from your standpoint, at least as a starting point for most?
So in the Reverse Me Method program, my clients and I, we only work out 20 minutes max per day and 3 to 4 days per week maximum. Okay. Because like I was telling you earlier, recovery is just as important. Rest is just as important. Seriously, Joe, sleep is just as important at this age, man.
Yeah.
So
no, and it's good because I think a lot of times too, right? People hear 20 minutes and they're like, well, that's not enough. But it's like, well, but again, I would just challenge people to look at what is your output in those 20 minutes, because we're talking about 20 minutes of heavy, which heavy doesn't mean, oh, my friend Susie lifts 30-pound dumbbells, I'm lifting 40, but I could be lifting 60. Like that's a difference, right? Or, whatever the numbers are. But I think it's also just your own feedback loop on that. If someone's trying to define heavy, are there other Do you do like intake questionnaires? Like, how do you monitor the lifts they're doing? Like, how do you tell if they're, you know, at the right intensity level?
I think that I always tell my clients that they should always aim for the weights that are heavy enough where they're, well, in the program we have different kinds of workouts.
Okay.
You know, we have heavy lifting, we have full body, we have HIIT, we do everything. You know, we want to vary too, because otherwise we don't want to get bored. But when we do heavy lifting, I always tell them, you know, if you can lift more than 10, you gotta get a different weight. That's too, like, we want to go heavy.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, 20 minutes, we want to really, really work hard. You know what I mean? And like you were saying, Joe, the goal is to either increase the rep as time goes or increase the weights, right? Progressive overload. Or when we do full body, we want to make sure that if there are a number of reps assigned, we want to make sure that the dumbbell weights that they're using, it's challenging enough where they're struggling with the last few reps of each move, each round, right? We want to always think heavy.
Yeah.
Meaning we want to prioritize heaviness over speed, if you know what I mean.
No, it makes sense. I mean, and because I think some pretty just along those same lines, like if people out there listening, like you can check out the website. Like I said, we'll have in the show notes, but you can see a bunch of transformations, and you have a mixture of sedentary women who are just starting to women who have been, getting after it for most of their adult life, from a training standpoint. But I think one of the things I wanted to bring up was how do you handle the education of weight loss versus fat loss? And to put it more specifically, if a woman says like, oh, I've been on this program for 4 months and I lost 10 pounds, everyone's like, only 10 pounds. Like some people could say like only 10 pounds. It's like, yeah, but how much lean tissue or lean mass or healthy weight gain is in that 10 to where maybe, the fat or the inflammation or the water, the unhealthy water retention, it could be 14, 15 pounds, whatever the case is, however the math shakes out. But I'm curious, how do you handle those conversations when you have a woman who hasn't lifted heavy and now you're dialing in the nutrition, you're dialing in other things that we'll get into in a minute to help build that lean tissue? Obviously, more lean tissue is going to affect the scale. So how do you handle that conversation? Because I know that's something I've at least experienced a lot, where women are very hyper focused on the scale, not necessarily the transformation that's going on as far as, the fat mass versus lean body mass.
I think that's why in the program, one thing that I try to, that I believe in, and then I always try to tell clients, is that at the end of the day, we all want, and I think I represent a lot of women in my age. They don't want six packs anymore. No, they just want to get back into their old clothes and wear whatever they want to wear on holidays. You know what I mean? They are not, and we in the program, we track two things. We track the scale, and then we track the transformation pictures, right?
Yeah.
Because like you were saying, the scale is not the only thing that matters, because everyone's body is different. Some people have more muscles than others. Some people have so much water weight that once you start getting them to move right and eat right, the scale just, but some people have so much muscles, the scale doesn't move. But when you look at the transformation pictures, it's like, wow, girl, you've lost, you got all torn up. So I think it's more, in this program, we're more about how you feel, and you want to get back to your old self. I think that we're not here to get six packs. We're not here to lose 30% of body fat. We just want to get back to our old clothes. We want to be able to open our closet and just pick whatever we want to wear, and then everything fits just like before. That's what we want.
Yeah.
We don't care if we have 2 packs. Yeah, we just want to be able to fit into those clothes, right? Because at this age, and we want to be able to sustain this. That's also one thing that I preach a lot in my program. We don't want you to lose all of this and then gain it right back. We want to create habits, because at this age, who wants to keep starting over and over again, right?
Yeah, no,
So
of course.
yeah.
Well, speaking of habits, like I'm curious if we get into nutrition a little bit. What are some common maybe myths or unknown errors that women are making that they when they come to you and you first look at their nutrition? Like what's something that jumps out at you as far as like, oh, this is pretty far off? Is there, a certain macronutrient or some other food that they're maybe taking in wrongly, or what comes to mind there?
I think a lot of women uh, are still trying to figure out the carbs.
Mm,
Yeah. And then some people will be like, oh, is this a low carb diet? And I always like the last thing I want my clients to eat carbs, right? Because we need carbs to sustain our energy, which is rare these days, right? Busy, professional, working women, moms, running all day long. We're low on energy. Plus, when the hormones shifts, it's rare, man, the energy. So we want to eat carbs, right? And now that we're going to be working out, we want to eat carbs, but we just want to eat the right kind of carbs. And then a lot of women who also come in the program thinking that they're eating, because I think everyone these days, if they're in any kind of health or fitness, have any health or fitness interest, they probably heard about the protein phenomenon. But,
well, I
and
think it's
a
helpful to
lot of
unpack
people
that.
who come in the program, when they reach out to me, they're like, yeah, I'm eating protein and all. But once they're in the program, actually, they're not eating enough protein.
Right.
So, yeah.
Is there a certain measurement you use for protein intake? Is it a percent of total calories, grams per pound, per kilogram? Like, what do you generally
Yeah,
like to use to start?
I just use around 1 gram of protein per um, per the weight that they'd like to achieve.
Yeah. So per pound of ideal weight. So just for those
Yeah,
out there, so if they weigh 180 pounds and they want to be, 150, then they would be aiming for 150 grams of protein per day.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And how do you see that getting layered into someone's day, like from a habit standpoint, like what they actually can consume and also a best practice? Is it split up? Like if we take 120 grams or whatever, and is that trying to do some quick math, is that 40 grams 3 times in the day? Is it 30 grams 4 times in a day? Like what do you usually see working for people? Is it get as much as you can in breakfast, and then that way you don't have as high of a load the rest of the day? Like what are some good practices you
Exactly.
see?
That's what I always tell all my clients. Try to get it in the morning or whatever the first meal is,
Yeah.
5 a.m., 9 a.m., or whatever time they have their first meal. And having enough protein on the first meal also helps prevent any unnecessary hunger during the day, keeps you full longer, and it's a win-win really. So if you need to prioritize protein, it's probably the breakfast that's the most important.
Yeah, and I think
So
it sets you up, right? It's kind of like why a lot of people, and if you're not a morning person, that's fine too, but why a lot of people like to exercise first thing in the morning, because then it's done, it's out of the way. But if you're not that you still would need to eat protein, but let's say of that 120, I'm just making these numbers up. So there's not a lot of science behind what I'm saying here. I'm just putting it out there for context for people. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to try to get to, 60 grams in my breakfast, or 50 grams, or find fuel sources of protein that I really enjoy first thing in the morning. Because what do most adults do? At least I can speak for in the US, like they don't even eat breakfast. It's just coffee. And then it's grabbing some kind of pastry on the go, or well, I don't eat that bad, but it's like, yeah, what about the 3 of the 5 days a week where you skip breakfast? Fine, you do that 5 days a week, that's normal. But then the 3 times you went to the office and slammed a donut or something, or maybe something even less obvious, and you go, there's that many calories in that? It's like, well, yeah, like your hunger signaling's through the roof. You need
I think like
that.
I think the worst thing ever, if I were to tell people to never, it's sugar. I think it's the worst thing, even more than the fat. Sugar is the worst enemy, man. And if you start your day, it doesn't matter what time. If you start your day with something sweet, it's just gonna, it's like set you up for the worst day ever. you
Yeah. And
know.
do you have any general rules of thumb regarding sugar that you like to give someone? Maybe, hey, if it has this many sugar or carbs, or excuse me, grams of sugar per serving, try to stay away from that? Or is there a certain amount of sugar content that you generally try to minimize for people out there that are just starting one of these programs?
No, not really. So what we do is actually how it works in the program is that I work based on each client's eating habits. So depending on, because I have clients from all over the world, from the
Yeah.
US, from Asia, from Europe. So everyone's eating habits are different,
Yeah.
And when I see what they eat, I tweak that, because one thing that I truly believe is I don't want to be giving people recipes, So I'm not the, if you're looking for recipes, I'm not the one.
Yeah.
But what I do is I don't want people to change their lifestyle, because I want it to be sustainable.
Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
So when you work with what they're already eating, it's more sustainable, because they don't, and especially these are busy women, most of them have kids. They don't have time to be cooking 5 dishes every night, one for her kids, and one for her husband. Right. Who has time? But maybe she has time, but how long is she going to have that time? She might be all pumped up and follow these recipes, but how long can she last?
Right.
We want something that fits into her lifestyle, and so that it stays with her, and what we do in the program, I want to give them enough knowledge based on what they're doing, so that they know how to manage their own health. I think it's very,
So
very
food, it
important.
sounds like food logs and getting feedback from people is a pretty important part to your program.
Very important. We don't, I mean, do I have recipes? Of course I have recipes, but to be honest, Joe, and I think a lot of women do, you see on Instagram people giving away recipes, and you comment it, you get it, you save it, you freaking, I don't know, save it on Google Drive, and you ever open it? To be honest, you still want to eat the same thing that you love to
It's
eat,
true. Yeah. Maybe you do
right?
it the one time because you're kind of excited. And then after
Yeah.
that, it's
You
like
try
back to
one
the,
recipe, and then you're like, yeah, I'll go back to my ham and cheese. So I don't know.
well, it's interesting you say that, because I remember I had a client, this is years ago, and she ended up, it was, I want to say 65 pounds she lost, but one of the things that we did, many things that we did, but there's two things that stick out to me. One was, um, we literally started with 1 ounce of chicken in one of her meals because she had zero protein. I'm like, it's only 7 grams. That's it. I'm like, it's not about hitting a number, because I think a lot of people put all this pressure, like, well, I need 100 grams a day, or I need 120, or I need 140, but I'm only getting in 40. It's like, well, how about you get in 60 for a week? Like, let's try to
Yeah.
hit 60 per day and build up. But what we did is, as she progressed, it went from 1 ounce, a couple weeks later 2 ounces, a couple weeks later 3 ounces, and then finally it got to the portion size of where she should have been all along. But it just was kind of part of that journey. And then just the reason why I like to ask a lot about myths and like misunderstandings, is I'll never forget this. Like, she came in one day. I mean, we're working together for a little over a month at this time, and I see this big 32-ounce Gatorade that she's chugging on the treadmill, and she's getting ready for a marathon. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, there's like, I forgot the number. I want to say 48 grams per serving of sugar. And I think there's 3 servings. And she's like, well, I'm an athlete and Gatorade's healthy, and like all athletes drink Gatorade. Like, how could I train without this? And she was being genuine. And I'm like, okay, like, let's take a breath here. I'm like, so let's go back to where marathon came from. She's getting ready for a marathon. Back in, ancient Greece, did they have Gatorade? I was like, Gatorade was invented in the 70s and wasn't really mass market, maybe until
Yeah.
closer to the 90s. She's like, oh, I guess I didn't think of that. And then we explained, all the sugar you're taking in. I was like, let's just modify that with something else. But my point is, best of intentions, just had no clue, is like completely working against her goals. Now, if she was trying to set a record at a marathon or whatever the case may be, there's definitely some utility in supplementation of electrolytes, sodium, and the sugar and all that good stuff. But if the whole reason why you're getting into running is because you want to drop, 60 to 80 pounds, and you're giving your body all that fuel, well, then it's not really using as much of your body's fuel. So, are there any examples of that you see where someone's just unintentionally just doing, the wrong thing or working against their goals? Or any stories come to mind?
I think one of the things I see a lot is they drink juice. And
Uh,
I'm like, "Why are you drinking juice?" I said, "You just have fruit." You know what I mean? I think that I think there's a lot of misinformation and the marketing and the sales of these products out there. You know, they yes, and yeah, definitely juice is very good. But then again, if you're taking away all the fiber and you're just drinking juice in the morning without anything else, that's just sugar,
right.
right? It's just gonna spike up that blood sugar real fast, and that's gonna make you become hungry really fast, you know. But but that's the beauty of my program, because once I know what they eat. So let's say this lady comes in eating juice. So I'm not telling her to stop eating her orange juice. I'm telling her, instead of orange juice, you have your orange. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So we don't want to, we want to enjoy life too, I think. Like I said, my clients are not looking for six packs. They just want to, yeah, so yeah.
Well, I want to circle back to something you brought up earlier. So you work with clients all across the globe, and I always find it interesting. So if we take to compare cultures and, just habits and patterns, if you take, say, in Asia versus the US, if we start with like breakfast, are there any just cultural differences as far as the macronutrients they take in or their habits as it relates to breakfast?
Again, really depends on the person, and but of course, when I see what they eat, it's completely different, But once they understand the nutrients they need to get in, the protein, the carbs, the fats, then they'll know what to eat, what to add more to each meal based on what they were already eating. Because I do have a lot of clients who are from Asia and they're eating a lot of Western food. So it's not something, so, and then I also have a lot of clients from the US who's originally from Asia,
Okay.
like they'll be eating Indian food or Filipino food or things like that, as if they were still in Asia. So it on really depends on their eating habits.
Are there certain food types, say Philippines, Asia, Western? I mean, I think most people listening in the US will stuff will pop in their head. But as far as how these cultures prepare their foods that maybe work against someone who has a more drastic weight loss goal, like are there certain things you see in the preparation of foods that maybe they can modify in some of these different cultures?
I think one thing about, at least in the Southeast Asian cuisine, is that there's a lot of sauce.
Okay.
So, but I'm also a big promoter in home cooking.
Mhm.
I mean, if they want to have that stir fry, because they love stir fried, I'd rather they do stir fry at home, right? Instead of buying a stir fry for lunch at work, because you don't know what kind of sauce they put in there, what kind of oil they use. And because it has a lot of sauce, it's probably the amount of sodium, the amount of fat, the amount of just junk and process, it's just really, really bad. So that is one thing that I see, because I'm Thai, so we do have a lot of sauce too. So I'm very, very mindful of that, especially when it's store-bought food. So,
Yeah,
but yeah.
no, and that's why I wanted to first bring up like the cuisines and things because, for example, like the local Thai place here, I love pad Thai and I get extra chicken every time and it's so good, but it's
Oh, pad
like
Thai is so bad.
I know, but they load it.
But it's so delicious.
They load it with stuff. What I'm saying is the way I order it,
Yeah.
it was changed, so it's not a lot of the sauces and things like that are in it. So it's actually they kind of look at me like I'm strange, and I'm like, no, I still want the good stuff. I
I
just
want
don't want
everything but that.
that. So
Yeah.
I think, but people would associate that with healthy, and I'm reminded of a good friend of mine, brilliant in dietetics, told me a story once about a lady he was working with, and she was like dialed into everything to a T, and he kept like no weight loss, no weight loss, even a half pound gain. He was like, what is going on? And short of the long, a lot of the healthy things she wasn't measuring. So like she was reporting her foods, but she was using high amounts of like olive oil, for example. Well, olive oil is healthy. So she started cooking everything with just tons of olive oil. But the added compound effect of all these additional fats over time wasn't calculated in her plan. And, not that everything has to be as precise as if you were like, in a lab somewhere, but still at the end of the day, physics tells us like there's a mathematical equation here that to be had. And anyways, once she changed that and was like, oh really? But it was something like, I want to say, because if you think about it, right, per gram, there's 9 calories of energy, in a gram of fat. Gosh, I want to say one of the meals, it was something like 30 or 25 grams that was like uncalled for, uncounted. And then you multiply that over 3 to 4 meals a day times 7 days a week. It's like, it's enough to not see the scale move at all.
So yeah. I think there's but like you were talking about pad thai, but I also believe that because I still eat pad thai and I still eat pasta, and because I think life's too short not to eat those bad delicious food. So we're just trying to balance it out, and I think that's also important. Like I always tell my clients not to be too stressed out during holidays, because what we do is we want to be seriously the end of my biggest goal, Joe, for everyone is to create habits, really. Yeah. Because once that is in, everything becomes easier. You can go on holiday for a month and just do crazy things, but it will be easy for you to come back to the healthy routine because you know how to do it, and it's easy for you because it's a habit, right? So I think that's the goal that should be a goal for everyone. I mean, everyone can lose weight. Seriously, everyone can lose weight.
Sure.
Right? But for how long? Right?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I'm curious too, like with one of the things I like to ask different practitioners out there is that work with different parts of the, in different parts of the world. Can you compare and contrast like the mindset of say women in the US versus women in Asia? Is there differences in body image, self-worth or pressures from society? Are there differences in stress levels or the workload? Is it more evenly distributed in one household, like Western versus Eastern, if you will? I'm just curious on some of those things, like are there patterns there that you see, and what are similarities and what are some differences?
I would say that my clients in the US, not all of them, but a lot of them do get a lot of stress from work. I'd see more than the ladies from Asia, and that affects as well with everything. Then they sometimes fall off the wagon, and some of them can't get back up. And sadly, so, and I think a lot of women in my generation, I think we're sandwiched literally between trying to have a great career, trying to raise our children, trying to be a good wife, trying to take care of our aging parents. It's a lot. We have to do everything, right? Let alone taking care of our body. Like we gotta do everything. It's right. Seriously, man, we're rocking.
Yeah, no, and I'm curious, when you mentioned like stress from work, do you feel like, and again, we're painting with a broad brush here, so there's different individual situations. I definitely want to acknowledge that. I'm just curious, is there more self-image wrapped up in work, or self-value and worth in the Western kind of women, if you will, or women in the US, that they tie it to their job too much? Is that where the stress is? Or is it more of a stressful work environment versus Asian women? Like, what do you see there?
I see a lot of from working environments. So, and that sometimes often leads them to not be able to prioritize themselves. For example, they have the intention of following through, but they get stressed, and I think a lot of them, work has a lot to do with it. So, and yeah, it's sad sometimes. I think well, I mean, most of my clients from the US, but the ones I see from Asia, I mean, yes, they are full-time working women, but I don't feel that vibe from them as much as I would feel from the US, from the ladies, from the women from the US. So
Gotcha. Yeah, and as far as so just kind of getting back to some of the habits. I mean, we're talking about mindset, we're talking about, you know, nutrition. One of the things you talk a lot about is recovery and sleep. What are some best practices you see for either one or the other or both related to recovery and sleep, that you're generally trying to work into the program? There are things that you do to help women plan that and have more success, maybe if they're having a hard time unwinding from the stress or recovering from just life plus exercise?
well, two things we try to help improve their sleep is to you know, I believe in detoxifying, and I'm not talking about like doing any cleanse or anything, but it's more like we want to offload the toxins that are in our liver that have been exposed to all these chemicals, physical stress, emotional stress, all of it. You know, the liver is over functioning at this point in time in a lot of midlife women who, you know, me too, you know. So we want to detoxify or cleanse with proper food, you know, reduce the inflammation and everything. And at the same time, we also want them to start practicing sleep hygiene, for example. And then again, it really depends, you know, like you said, it's not everyone's the same, but a lot of women, they have too many things going on in their head. You know, they can't fall asleep. They got stress thinking about, I don't know, their kids, their job or whatever. So we also prioritize the recovery, making sure that if they come into the program with crappy sleep, that is also a goal to improve their sleep. You know, this is not, like I said, this is not like a weight loss program. It's more like a lifestyle change, you know, at this age, right? And if you continue to have crappy sleep, that also does not help with weight loss either at this stage, right? That means your cortisol is just like up the roof the whole time. So, and we do a lot of, we try to encourage them to step back, either meditation, journaling, or, you know, things like that to really manage their stress. We're not saying that you're not gonna have stress. Of course, you know, life is stressful, but we're saying we need to manage our stress properly.
Right. Yeah, and I would imagine that's probably for some maybe a lengthier process for others. You know, how to manage that stress. So I'm curious too, within the reverse me method, what does that look like? Is there a weekly call? Is there, you know, a community group people are talking? Is it email? Like how do you support them through that journey, specifically under this, you know, umbrella of like stress management?
Well, we have we do Zoom calls. I have a training mobile app where this is where I communicate with the clients, and they can reach out to me at any time. We also have a Facebook community just for the clients where they can find support with the other clients, sharing struggles, sharing wins, sharing recipes or whatnot. So, you know, I'm not a I don't know, enterprise or anything like that. So it's a little tight-knit community with the same like-minded ladies supporting each other. And I truly, truly love my clients. And, you know, and Joe, seriously, I don't sleep well when my clients are not doing well.
Yeah.
That's how much I care.
Yeah. So you need help with stress management sometimes.
Yes. So I always tell them, you better do your workout. You better rest, you better sleep, because otherwise, when they don't get progress, they get stressed and I get stressed and I can't sleep.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's no, I think I think it's brilliant though, because there's so many tools out there to create community. And you know, I think it's picked up a little more on the men's health side of things, but it's still not enough to where, like, even at the gym this morning, there's a couple older guys there. And again, good for them. They're in the gym, they're lifting, they're doing their thing. But and this is not a this is more of a health statement, not a judgmental the way they looked. But I've been doing this my entire life, so you know, got the degrees and the certifications and all that good stuff. So I can tell. But looking at them from a clinical standpoint, they were obese class 1 or obese class 2, and they were lifting some heavy weights. And I just was like, I was looking over them, and I was just like, man, like, you know, and it's more from a posture of care, not being judgmental, but I'm like, gosh, like the way they moved, you know, was clunky, and just they just were hunched over and you know, big bellied and all this. And I'm just like, man, these guys are so strong. Like, if they just had a more comprehensive program, and frankly, like a support group team to share best practices. Like I grew up, my dad, you know, worked in the automotive, yeah, especially being from Michigan. And the funny thing, like, I just think he was weird. I'm like, what? I was never into cars, you know, but my brothers were and my dad was. But my point in my analogy is, like, they would all get together and like tinker with a car together, you know, and it's like, we're going to get together a bunch of guys and sit out there for hours on end messing with the motor and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, we don't see that a lot in health though. It's like, okay, guys, so we know we can do that. And the women are already ahead of us on that. I would say, like, I see more support and collaboration there. But it was crossed my mind this morning. I just like looked down, and I think partially because one of the guys asked me a question that, you know, something I was doing that he was like, what is that? You know, and I was doing more like movement patterns to like open up my hips and my back. And like, you know, I'm in that middle 40 range. What's that?
Non-traditional looking.
Yes. And I'm in that mid 40s range. So I'm like, you know, and I still think I'm in my 20s sometimes. So like I have, you know, I have to adjust, which for all intents and purposes though, like there's 20-year-old, there's college athletes that are doing this stuff at a much higher level that I'm doing from a restorative standpoint. So it's not just an age thing. I should have been doing it my whole life, and that's probably why I'm tighter than I really should be. But the point is, I think that's a brilliant way to do it, is to give opportunities for community connection, sharing, celebrating together. You know, we're made to be, you know, communal as humans, right? So I think that's a really cool attribute that you have in your program, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with your success.
Thank you. I'm very lucky. And, you know, and each time a client signs up, really, Joe, I'm truly grateful that they trust me. So, you know, I mean, if I can be honest, I mean, we're practically strangers, and they decide to go with me. I mean,
Yeah.
That's such an honor. You know what I mean? So, and yeah, and most of them are across the continent. So I'm very grateful. That's why I care. And I think they can feel that I care. And, you know, and so, and I think at this stage of life, support is huge. Accountability is huge. You know, this is not like in our 20s where we can all just get on the treadmill and maybe use a fitness app, and then bam, you'll get results within a week, right?
Right.
It's a completely different ball game now. So yeah, and that's why.
Yeah, I'd say there's even challenges even at those earlier ages and those earlier phases too. But yeah, I am curious too, just to talk a little more. I wish I would have dove into this more at the beginning of the episode, but about you. So where are you at right now? What country are you in right now at the moment?
So I split my time between Thailand and Europe. I have families in Thailand and in Europe. And so in Europe, I just came back from Europe. I was in France, and one of my daughters in Italy. But when I'm in Thailand, I live in Bangkok.
Okay.
But I used to live in the States for a long time. You know, I used to study there. I used to work there. So
where in the States did you live?
Michigan was one of them.
Oh, really? Where
Yeah,
in
I went to
Michigan?
Central Michigan.
Central Michigan?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no,
I was a Midwest girl. I was in Wisconsin for a little bit, Michigan for a little bit, and I did, and a lot of times I was in Chicago. I love Chicago.
Did you go to school at Central Michigan? Or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What
Pleasant.
years? What? Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. Yeah, no. We have.
Where are you in Michigan?
I'm about an hour and a half south of Central Michigan.
Ah, okay.
I'm. You know what? Yeah, about an hour and a half. Yeah, and I have family in Midland, which is the big city right next to Mount Pleasant. And I've been to Central Michigan several times. I almost went there. That's a whole nother story in itself. But I ended up staying. I went to Western Michigan, which is their rival, for a little bit, and then I went back to Wayne State. So I was a Bronco for a year. All my friends that went to Central, because a lot of friends went into education. They have a good education program there. But yeah, no, I was curious to that because. So for those who are listening, so I'm obviously in Michigan, which is Eastern time zone. So it's 10 a.m. here. And what is it? Is it 10 p.m. in Bangkok right now?
It's 9 p.m.
9 p.m. Okay. So it's 11 hour difference, right? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So no, good stuff. And then, so what years were you in Mount Pleasant?
Oh my God. Decades ago. Oh my God. You cannot ask me that. I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough.
So long ago.
Fair enough.
Would say maybe in early 90s. Oh my God. That sounds so old.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because I was just about the old things. I was talking to one of the coaches, and there was a I do some work here locally with the football program, and I was telling him about a technique, and I said, "Yeah, I learned it," and I paused and I said, "What year? That was over 20 years ago."
Yeah,
I
know,
literally
right?
saying the word 20 years ago, and I'm like, "What happened? What happened?"
Yeah, I know. It's insane. You're in your 40s still?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yep. You're still a baby, man.
Still a baby. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. That's what all the retired guys that I coach with tell me. But good stuff. Just to round out the things today, I wanted to give you an opportunity to do a couple things here. Appreciate your time and jumping on the podcast today. But are there any other kind of closing thoughts you have for women out there? Maybe words of encouragement or advice that come to mind, and would you mind sharing some of those?
I really want to tell everyone that it is truly, truly possible to get back in shape. Truly. Mm-hmm. You just have to have the right strategy. Mm-hmm. And I'm so confident when I say that because firsthand experience, right? I struggled for so many years, and I really thought, oh, maybe this is how it's going to be now, because I was almost 49. I was like, oh my God, this is what it looks like when I should be grateful that I had a great body for the last 20 years, and 50 is just going to be like this. But it does not. And I repeat, it does not have to be like this. And you can totally change. You just need the right strategy. It's truly, truly, truly possible.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, for everyone listening in, thanks for tuning into the First Optimal podcast. We'll definitely have Tatch, his handles, her website, all of her information in the show notes. But as we kind of close out here, Tatch, where can people find you? Just if they're listening to this and maybe just listening to audio and they don't have their the notes handy, where's some places they can find you? Your website, your Instagram, etc.
So my Instagram handle, very easy. Tatch, my name. Tatch Fits at 50, because I am fit at 50. So my IG is Tatch Fit at 50, or I also have a website, which is the name of my coaching program. So reversememethod.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us again. Really appreciate it. I know super busy with your clients and everything you're doing, but it's great to have you on, share your knowledge, and I'm hopeful, a lot of people dig into your content and kind of explore and look at a lot of your things. So yeah, like I said, you have a lot of even short clips that are really practical and easy to apply. So I would definitely encourage people to check out all of your socials. And thanks again, everybody, for joining the First Optimal podcast. Be sure to put any comments or questions in the show notes, and we'll be happy to get back to you and answer anything we can for you. So thanks again, Tatch. We'll see you guys. Take care.
Thanks for having me, Joe.